house are kids. Check it out, bruh.
Cotton gauze mask with Swarovskis and charms. You can buy these masks on my Etsy website, which is in the links below, or you can make it yourself. Materials you're gonna need are Fiskars cutting board, Fiskars rolling knife, some gauze fabric. You need a cup of water, some extra cups, a big brush, Rit tie-dyes, and your pattern. You can get this free pattern in the link below. And also, all of these materials, you can check out the link below. The thing about these dyes, they are sold out everywhere. So I had to buy them online. They're like $7, $8 on Amazon. But I think it's worth it because they're in high demand right now. Cutting mat board is 18 inches by 12 inches. This is perfect for small projects like the masks, and it was only $11 at Walmart. What a bargain. And it's from Fiskars. It's a very, very well-known brand for scissors, which everybody knows they cut extremely well. And then this rotary knife for fabric, this one was $10. You can put a safety button on there, and you can also take it down. And this is so sharp. I didn't know they were so cheap. I wish I knew this when I was in college, but if you guys are sewing and you don't have these objects, you guys are losing out. You should go and buy them right now on the link below. Check the link below. You're gonna take a piece of self. Now this is a gauze fabric. It's doubled layered. It has two pieces of very, very thin gauze fabrics together, just like that. And this is one piece of fabric. It's about 14, 15 inches wide by about 8 inches tall. So 15 this way, 8 inches this way. And I also have a very, very thin, this is also a kind of gauze, but it's called a voile. And this, you can see it's kind of see-through, but I'm gonna use this as my third layer. We're going to fold it in half. And I have this nice Fiskars matting table. So great. If you're doing little cutting like masks and stuff, you should definitely have this. I bought this at Walmart. You can probably get online, Amazon, wherever. I will put a link where you can purchase. And what are these? Fiskars cutting rollers. It's like cutting a pizza, but like, where have you been all my life? Like, this is just so much easier than using scissors. So I'm gonna put my pattern straight on top, and I'm just gonna cut it out just like I'm gonna cut a piece of a pizza. So the easiest way to do this, because the fabric, the gauze fabric, is very light and it might move around, is you're gonna start a little bit away from the edge. If you start too close to the edge, then it kind of crimples the fabric. So I kind of start away from the edge, and we sew 1/2 inch seam allowance. And then I go straight to the self fabric, the double gauze. Now, using pink thread is actually a pretty good idea because we're gonna be dyeing our mask pink and turquoise. So you open it up, put the right sides together, make sure the part that is sticking out more is the top, and you're gonna put them on the correct sides together. In my other videos, I had the lining and the self kind of like a little bit lower. You don't have to do that here because we're gonna be doing a top stitch. One thing you do wanna do is put the seam allowances on opposite directions. I've noticed that if you put it on the same direction you sew it, then it kind of creates a pleat. So you want to put them, like the one in the back, you put on the left, the one in the front, you put on the right. And then you sew the top. Make sure that it stays down and then the top stays forward. As you can see, the seam allowances, the edges don't match up perfectly. You know, it's really hard to do this with the home sewing machine because the gauze fabric is really light and it moves around a lot. But we're going to fix that a little bit with the top stitch at the end. And you know, that's sort of the natural beauty of the fabric. You know, it has a life of its own, but that's what you need to do to get like all the air holes so you can breathe. But it's still 3 layers of fabric, so it's still really good. See, when I get close to the center, just remember the top is laying away from you, and then the bottom seam allowance is laying towards you. So you're gonna do the same thing, same direction for the top and the bottom. Trim all of your excess threads. Then we're going to flip it over. Now that we have this, we're gonna flip it inside out. You're just gonna flip this out just like you're flipping socks inside out when you do the laundry. There you go. Now you're ready to dye. Next, you're gonna get a cup of water and you're gonna dip your whole mask into the water. The reason why we do this is because the cotton needs to be wet so we can get a nice ombre. We can get the dyes to absorb into the fabric without making like a really crisp cut line. So as you can see, it's like really, really damp, but it's not dripping wet. Make sure you know like the part that comes up more is the top and the part that comes less is the bottom. It's easier if you have some extra cups. You can just pour your dyes into the cups. Just a little bit like that. And then use your brush. You're gonna just dip it in. And it's like painting. You're gonna paint your mask. And we need to blend the colors together. So that is why we need a wet mask. This is like watercolor. When you do watercolor, you need to wet your paper first so that your colors can absorb really nicely together. Still feels kind of dry, so you might want to use some water. Blend it in. Do you see how it's making like a gradient? It's getting lighter as it comes down. I'm gonna add a little bit more to the edge just so I can get a very vibrant color. And this is a fuchsia color. It dyes a little bit lighter after you wash it out. So just like watercolor, after you dry everything is a little bit lighter than what you see. So important here is you should get the underside of the mask. Make sure there are no like white areas. So just flip it over just like that. Next color is the orange. If anybody had any of those tie-dye kits, these bottles are great because you could just put the dyes in there. You could just squeeze them on top instead of using a brush. It's actually a little bit easier. But you can't get as much control as if you do it with a brush. Now here we go with the emerald. Now when you do the emerald, you have to be careful not to spray. You see how I got a little dot right there? We don't want to spray like green dots on the pink part, so you do really have to be careful. The process of dyeing, if you splatter it on, it's not going to be easy to get it off. You're just going to have to like fix your mistake if that happens. You know, and actually that's like the beauty of tie-dye too. So not two masks are going to be the same. They're very unique because they're all hand done, just like I'm doing here. You can see me dipping my brush back into the water and blending the two colors, getting some excess tie-dye color off, and then getting like sort of a damp brush to blend the colors. That's exactly what you want. Bottom parts are dyed pretty well. You want to leave it like this for about 4 to 8 hours. I like to leave it overnight just so that I know that the dyes are gonna sink into the fabric. So leaving it overnight would be a really good idea. Finally, our masks are dried. We left it overnight. You want to run it under cold water first. And then leave it in a cup of water for about 5 seconds. Repeat the process about 5 times. Now we only do this because we want to get as much dye out before we throw it into the washing machine. Three times should be good. Squeeze it out, and now you're ready to put it into the washing machine. Let's go wash. So now that we have our mask, we are going to have to give it a good press. It's going to be really shriveled up. This is a cotton gauze. And now we're going to add the elastic. Now I just push it in about 1/2 inch at the edge. Make sure you do it even on both sides. See, it's about like that. And then I use 1/8 inch elastic because these are more forgiving, but they're still really, really strong. I cut them at about 5 inches. I'm just gonna stick it in and do the sewing. And now there's a trick to this because the end of the fabric gets really thin. So you want to do one side first, but this way. Only put the elastic at the bottom and then leave about like 1/4 inch to 3/8 at the top so that we can, and then you want to sew, you can maybe start at like 1/2 inch. Sew it. And then you want to go around doing the top stitch. Now when you get to the other side, do the same thing. You push in 1/2 inch, then you want to add your elastic. The elastic seam allowance should be about 1/2 inch too. If it's too short, there's not enough in there, sometimes it kind of it just like pulls out. So you want to put a good 1/2 inch in there. When you get to the end, you stick your needle in and you pivot. Make sure your elastic is straight. When you get to the other side, don't forget to stick in the elastic again. Again, pivot, and then you finish it off. This is completely optional, but you can add Swarovski crystals to your mask. These are crystal AB size SS20. You need to use the E6000. This is the best glue that is out there for rhinestones. And I have some Swarovski crystals, and I like to just put them in the corners. And these wax sticks. These are so great. You can't live without these wax sticks if you're gonna work with Swarovskis or rhinestones. Cherry charm. I'm gonna add a good amount of glue all over the back of the charm because this glue is industrial strength. It's very strong. So once it goes on, it doesn't come off. I don't think it ever comes off unless you're like yanking on it. And there you have it. You have your nice, breathable cotton gauze mask with Swarovskis and charms. Thank you for watching this video. Give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.